Hi, I'm Lori Jones, President and CEO of Avocet Communications and host of the Integrate and Ignite Marketing Podcast. Join me and my guests, some of the world's top innovators, disruptors, and visionaries, as we explore bold and brave marketing strategies for scaling and growing your brand. Picture this, a world where meetings are actually productive, your team remembers action items, and you can stay present without frantically scribbling notes. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, Krish Ramineni, the innovative mind behind Fireflies, has made it a reality, and he is my guest today on the Integrate and Ignite Marketing Podcast. Building Fireflies wasn't all smooth sailing. Krish and his team faced challenges, pivots, and 4 long years of hard work. But here's the real secret to Firefly's success: happy customers, a product-led growth strategies, and smart word-of-mouth marketing. Listen to my conversation with Krish, and you'll walk away with keen insights into important topics such as category creation. Creating a new category and educating customers about it requires a significant resource allocation, something not all companies have. Krish addresses how to enter an already defined category and build upon existing market awareness. Early market entry. Krish knows all too well that building a brand takes time. Being early can give you a competitive advantage, but it requires strategic education and a growth mindset. Customer satisfaction. Fireflies is all about happy customers. Satisfied customers become advocates, spreading the word about your product or service. Word of mouth referrals are powerful marketing tools that can significantly reduce customer acquisition costs. So if you're tired of meetings that lead nowhere, get ready to ignite your productivity with Krish Ramineni and Fireflies on this episode of the Integrate and Ignite Marketing Podcast. It's time to take your marketing and your growth strategy to the next level and leave the chaos behind. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Integrate and Ignite podcast. I am so excited to have Krish Ramineni with me today from Fireflies. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lori. I'm excited to be here.
I tell you, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Even before we ever anticipated having you as a guest, we've been Firefly users forever and ever and ever. I shouldn't say forever and ever and ever, for at least 18 months. So we're super excited, and it has been a great AI tool. We're going to dive into that today. Before we get there, though, tell us a little bit more about your journey, because it is a very interesting one, which includes Microsoft, the cover of Entrepreneur Magazine, all sorts of great stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you for being an incredible Fireflies user, and that's always music to my ears. And the single premise that we can think about with Fireflies was, hey, I can remember an email I sent 2 years ago, but why can't I remember a conversation I had 2 hours ago? Meetings are extremely expensive. And so in your case, you have perfect memory of conversations you've had 18 months ago, over a year and a half ago. So that's immediately the value prop right there for Fireflies in terms of giving you perfect memory of all of your past conversations. And on top of that, allowing you to stay present during meetings while the bot takes notes for you. It was just a natural extension of what we were already trying to do in our daily lives. And I remember getting this advice from folks that said, the more clear your vision is, and then the more clear the problem you're solving is, you need to use fancy words to explain it or lingo, and people will start resonating with that. So for us, when we tell people, hey, Fireflies just joins your meetings and takes notes like your personal meeting assistant, they get it. There's no follow-up explanation I need to give or justification. So I think it took years of culmination, a lot of pivots to get to where we're at. But at the end of the day, the more crystal clear the concept was, the easier it is for everyone else. So not just us building it.
Well, I tell you, you've got such a great background. Do you remember that aha moment that you said, this tool is needed, I know how to build it, and you just said, let's go?
Before we even rolled it out to existing interested parties, what we said was, let's build this for ourselves, because we are having lots of meetings with our customers, investors, advisors, and there's no way for me to keep track of all of these different conversations. So before Fireflies was the voice meeting assistant that it is today, before that, we actually had some other NLP technology. One was a Chrome extension that would track down action items when I send messages to people on Slack or LinkedIn. Anywhere I made a promise that I'll do something or they tell me they're going to do something, it would automatically detect it and then create a to-do list for me. So that was the original product. And this was before all of the open AI, generative AI hype. It was using good old NLP. So the technology itself wasn't there, but the product was really promising when we had started working on that. And as we were doing that, we said, hey, I'm spending way more time in meetings than managing to-do lists. Let's just apply this technology to our meetings and just hack something together really quickly. And so the really early version of Fireflies was a Slack integration that would just send my transcript into Slack and then jot down a few action items that I can search back through. So this was before we built a full-on product, anything like that.
Right.
But the aha moment really happened when we started having beta testers and users, and they were starting to talk about Fireflies with other people. And I would hop on some of these calls with customers and say, oh, how'd you hear about us? And they're like, well, so-and-so actually started using it in a call. And we could track, like, Firefly started being used in San Francisco. And then one of our customers had a meeting with someone in Atlanta, Georgia. And then there were 10 companies in Atlanta, Georgia that were starting to use it very quickly. And this was early days. And that was the aha moment where we said, if we build something valuable, people will talk about it, share it, and then the natural virality of meetings will get this to more people. So that was the place where we went all in.
Yeah, well, I tell you, that's exactly what I've experienced as well. A lot of times, when we're doing roll call for a meeting or something like that, someone will ask, who is Fireflies? Who is Lori's Firefly? And immediately people are like, I need more information on that. So we've experienced that exact same thing. I would imagine going after funding, the experiential side of a pitch is really important when it comes to VCs or investment banking, private notes, whatever it might be. And I would imagine for an investor to be able to experience this firsthand really has helped you sell the need for the market and ultimately help fuel some of that growth versus a lot of other products out there that still just don't have that ability for someone to touch and feel.
When I go to different websites and when I'm advising different startups, or even early stage, late stage, mature startups, if I don't understand something in the first 30 seconds, I am stuck. Like, what does this do? What are you selling to me?
Right.
And that was something that we wanted to eliminate friction around. So as founders that were product and engineering oriented, from day one, we wanted the product to be super transparent, put our pricing up on our site, get people to try it before they buy it, like all of the good old product-led growth stuff. We took it to heart, frankly, because there was no reason for us to gatekeep information that was not needed to be held secret.
Right.
So we started with that journey. And yes, and the other extreme of that is you can experience Fireflies before you even sign up for it. And whether it's you see it in the meeting or you get the email recap afterwards, and that reduces that barrier significantly. The Zoom CEO once said that when investors asked to meet him in person, to have meetings and things like that, he said, no, just hop on my Zoom call. And then that was his pitch.
It
really.
was so smart.
Yeah, that was his pitch.
Well, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom in that. And so a teaching for a listener today that might be very, very early stage regarding how they can, immerse a potential investor into their product. What would be their advice if they're not as far along as you were when you were pitching?
We definitely were not that far along when we were pitching, and there was rough edges, but I think the good investors are able to see where you were at day 0 versus day 50, day 60. And it's really about the progress and the speed of iteration. There's a lot of companies that are able to raise today without even having a product, just on a few slides. But I think it's much more convincing when you can show even a beta, a sample piece, even 20% of what the overall potential vision is going to be. And my advice is do that one unique thing that helps you stand out really, really well, and then start building out the platform. Because sometimes for the aha magic moment, you only need to build a small piece of it.
Right. That is some sound advice there. as you were talking about word of mouth and referral and how the company is really one of the strong components to ultimately helping it scale, really what you're talking about is product adoption. And there's nobody, better to talk about a product than a current user or a current customer. How has that been mixed into your overall marketing strategy?
Something interesting we started seeing late last year and then the beginning of this year was the amount of people that were tweeting about Fireflies, writing lengthy love letters on LinkedIn about how valuable it is for them.
Yeah.
And we had not specifically spent a lot of money on marketing to date. To be honest, we didn't spend any money on paid or performance marketing. We did some blogging, some content, but our primary source of growth, I would say maybe 70 to 80% of our customers come through some form of word of mouth. Either they see it in a meeting and they sign up, or someone talks about it and recommends it. And to us, that customer recommendation is the best form of marketing. We don't have
For any product. Yeah.
any product, and you don't have to go beat your own drums. And I would say even for some of the best products like Google and Facebook back then, you heard about it through a friend or you saw someone else use it and said, I want to get in on that.
Right.
And it's true in consumer marketing, but I think it's also taking place in all of the B2B marketing because people are bringing their own tools and devices. This is the case with Dropbox, with Calendly, with Slack, with Zoom. So there's so many examples of this. I think over time, if you have this component and then you eventually do traditional marketing like SEO, SEM, paid channels, it will bring down your CAC significantly. And that is a bet that we have to make is if people are able to promote it and more people get access to it, the traditional channels, we should still do. I'm not against doing sales or advertising or these sort of things. It's just something we haven't done as much today. But I think those channels could get amplified with the word of mouth because the best thing you can get is someone saying something positive about you. And then that is your social proof. That is your case study. That is your essentially selling point. Yeah.
Social selling at its best. It takes a very, very strong brand, however, in order to make that happen. And it's not just look and feel, it's actually the perception that you want to create in the market, and then that the customers emulate that perception and do the talking and the walking for you. Going back to some of those early days and the discussion outside of tech and the engineering behind the product, what were you talking about when it came to the need for a strong brand?
Brand is something that doesn't happen overnight. And so a lot of the people that come and look at Fireflies and say, obviously this was going to be a great hit. It was 4 years of struggle and getting established. And sometimes there are those days where you think about, I thought we have a pretty good product. Why are people not receiving it in the same way? And so that was something that actually took a lot of time, and it happens incrementally. And those first couple of years is extremely difficult, especially if you're doing product-led growth. You're not using a heavy sales-led motion. It really starts one customer at a time, making them happy. And then that starts to compound. I really do believe SaaS is compounding. It's exponential, but the brand stuff doesn't happen overnight. But I also believe if you can make 100 people really happy and in love with your product, versus 1 million people that sort of use you or product and then the next day forget about it. You don't want to be a hype cycle like product. There were a lot of companies that came out during the pandemic that were catered towards just the pandemic use cases. And that ended up skyrocketing. Some really good companies that have raised tons of money, were valued in billions, today ended up disappearing. So when we were in the pandemic and we had launch, we definitely got an up spike in usage, adoption, and interest. So that helped us with our launch during January of 2020.
What a time.
Everyone was using video conferencing, everyone was remote, and it helped us ease into the launch. But we made a conscious decision then that, hey, we know that Fireflies is not just a pandemic remote product. It has to be used in every place and time. And it's valuable fundamentally. You're coming for the AI note taker, but really you're building this magnificent knowledge base of all of your team's conversations. So there is a bigger SaaS enterprise value add here, and we have to work towards that mission and build the brand towards that, rather than, we never even called ourselves a COVID tool, or this is a must-have remote tool. So that was just something that the market told us at that time. And it's funny because when we started building Fireflies, there was no pandemic, there was no remote stuff.
Right.
So we had to build for the real world, the office at that time. But going back to your point about brand, it really starts one customer at a time. It then starts amplifying, but you also have to sustain it so that it's not like a fad or a hype cycle. Yeah.
Right. So obviously new product enhancements, product, you've got some new AI tools that are coming out on the product right now that deeply recognizes voice beyond and can actually take a look at action items and stuff like that. And ultimately, what is happening here is that you are maintaining customers through these additional product life cycles. Talk to us about the importance of product life cycle and making sure that there's always something new, especially when it comes to SaaS, for someone else, it might be something new for a customer to be, or a prospect rather, or something just to keep that current customer a customer.
No product is perfect. And I feel like if I take a step back from where we were in January 2020 to where we are today, it's been a long journey. The product has evolved. There's been a lot of improvements, from the UX to the UI to all of the features and capabilities that we believe we built. But as a founder, I only see imperfections in the product or what can be made better. So
you and I both. I tell you, I think it's that founder DNA, right? There's always something that isn't 100%.
And that is something that you're always constantly trying to make better, trying to improve. You see all the gaps, the flaws, and that's just a mindset you're trained on. You just don't want it to reflect into your everyday life as well. That is important, because the bar that you set for yourself and your product and your team, that's like the type of expectation that you have every day. You come in. That's the beauty of being an entrepreneur, beauty of being at a startup, where you can visibly have some sort of impact and change. If you're at a larger company and you see something glaringly wrong, you have to go through like 5 layers of management. By that point, you're like, yeah, I'm getting my paycheck. I don't really need to bother about it. It's whatever.
Too hard. Yeah.
So it's that dying like desire to work on something, improve something, and have impact, right? Like the ultimate meaning for an entrepreneur is having impact. That's why we're willing to work 120 hours for ourselves every week versus working 40 hours for someone else. So it's DNA. That's at the core of how you go about these things. But for us, it really was building out the UI, getting the experience around signing up, reducing friction at every stage of the customer life cycle. That was really important. Mm-hmm. And for one of the other things we found is, how can we use AI to further reduce friction for end users? So we have a really cool feature inside Fireflies that will let me go to any 30-second, 20-second clip of what a customer said and turn that into a soundbite that I can share. So quick little video. And that was handy, but we noticed that a lot of people had to go manually highlight sections and create little highlight reels.
That is so cool.
Yeah. So we said,
that is marketing, my friend.
So if you were to say something nice about Fireflies, I could manually click on that, select that clip, and then create a soundbite. We said, how about we use this generative AI stuff and create an automatic highlight reel? So I don't even have to manually go and select those clips. So I'd go in, and this new soundbites capabilities has this thing called magic soundbites. And I click it, and it automatically generates the top 5 or 10 highlight reel segments from the call instantly. I don't have to do anything. Yeah.
Well, and for us podcasters out in the world, that, think about the value in that. That's incredible. We've talked about the brand. We've talked about product life cycle and the importance of it. And along with that, there's certainly competition. And AI, I think, is probably bigger today than it ever has been. And it's just going to absolutely grow in a massive, massive way. What are you doing to ward off competitors or look-alike products?
One of the best things that any company can do is, before you have an AI strategy, you need to have a data strategy. You need to be providing some sort of unique value to customers, whether it's in the form of data, whether it's in the form of workflows. So before this AI hype even started, we were a SaaS product. We were doing all the basics right, building out the dashboard, the platform, the payments, the workflows, the integrations. And I think a lot of companies that are coming in today think they can skip all that hard stuff and then build a wrapper. That could be a hook. It's great for your MVP. It's great for your prototype, like I talked about earlier, but you will eventually have to build a proper SaaS product. And in our case, we had all of the foundation ready. And for us to adopt and incorporate this generative AI stuff was a lot easier. So for a company that's competing with an enterprise that's slow to adopt AI, they have a better chance.
Right.
But if you're competing with another startup that's fully geared, fully tuned in, that has the distribution channels, it's much harder. So I feel like, and I've talked to folks that tried to do what we did and then ended up shutting down and saying this was too difficult, because we've seen about like 7 or 8 companies come up and go, some that were much further along than us, or went up really quickly, raised a lot of money, and then kind of went kaboom. So what I found through a lot of those things is it is continuously innovating, continuously working. But they said that, hey, it's much easier for me to go compete with the big tech giants of the world who are going to move slower than it is to compete with you. Because we look at it, everyone's using like an AI note taker, and the default company that I think about is Fireflies. So we actually ended up buying AInotetaker.com recently because everyone just...
I just read an article about you doing that. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
and
so
that's another, I mean, it's another form of marketing as well, and positioning.
Yeah. It's the thing about when you think about Google, you think about search, or you think about Facebook, you think about social media. And so for Fireflies, people think AI note taker, and there's so many other people trying to compete for that word. But owning that brand, that market share definitely helps.
Yeah.
So we have seen some potential upstarts. What they do was, okay, well, I can't compete with Fireflies on the overall platform, so I'm going to go and build like a niche AI note taker for recruiting or for a specific thing like for consulting. And what they quickly realize is that, oh, I don't have the same distribution effects. I don't have the same virality. I have to do a traditional sales motion. So there's companies that can be spun up. There's always, I think, space in an ecosystem. Like you think about Salesforce, but then after that, you had HubSpot, you had Pipedrive, you had Zoho, you had
a million others.
Freshworks, who built billion-dollar businesses. So there's always space in a market. I think competition is a sign that there is great customer demand, and you shouldn't shy away from it. In our case, regardless of competition, what we think about is how can we serve the most number of customers in the most effective way and provide value? Because our whole goal is we want to democratize AI. We want to bring AI and give everyone their own chief of staff, and that should be Fireflies. So we're going on that journey. And yes, you'll see competitors and upstarts along the way. But doing things that don't scale is great in the early days. I love the Paul Graham YC advice, but to win a market, you have to do things that scale. And so over time, you have to figure out how can you be in 100 places at once. There's also risk of distraction, but yes, it's something that if you want to have a market dominant strategy, anywhere you go, you're going to see Fireflies. Any industry, any sector you go to, you're going to see Fireflies. So that's how we plan to compete. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, the perfect scenario is that, you know, all the stars are aligned, right? How do you place importance on the timing, the product itself, and then the customer loyalty that you've achieved? Any one of those stand out regarding the fast growth that you've been able to achieve?
A lot of times people start working on something once the technology has been proved out and a lot of people are coming to it. It's like the gold rush where, hey, there's other people doing this, let's go do this. The thing though is some of the best companies are doing it before there is 100% conviction around a technology or a space. And it's very difficult in the early days because when we first started, transcription was incredibly expensive. It wasn't perfectly accurate. You have to deal with noise and different accents, and there's just so much stuff. So I would say the technology was only about 70% of the way there. But we foresaw that the trends are, hey, the costs are going to go down, the accuracy is going to get better, and then even the natural language stuff is going to get better. Not to the extent of ChatGPT or GPT-3 or generative AI. So when we started, part of it is timing, but it's also like a future outlook that this stuff will become possible for everyone. And I think some of the best companies did that even in the cloud, right? When you look at the boxes and boxes of the world, everyone was using they're competing with USBs at that time, right? USB hard drive sticks. So they realized that cloud was expensive, but they knew where the cogs were going. And so I believe part of it is being early to the market, but there's been many companies that are early to the market that did not succeed, right? In search, there were, I think, 7 or 8 different search companies before Google hit it off big. Facebook wasn't the first one to the social media market. So it's really, part of it is timing, part of it is execution. Other part of it is having a really strong growth and data and experimentation strategy.
Right.
And then just team and execution cannot be overlooked. Those are really important things. You have to constantly stay relevant. Someone was telling me that, hey, Facebook didn't invent stories. Snapchat did.
Right.
But they executed ruthlessly on stories, and it's the most popular thing. So that's something to be said about. Ideas are dime a dozen, but it's really about execution that's going to help you stand apart in the long run.
Did you set out to develop a brand new category strategy? And did you go through that, category strategy process itself, or did you just know that there was a tipping point and, back to the timing and innovation and everything you just said, you were there?
Category creation is something that people who have a lot of money can spend a ton on customer education and have a lot of VC backing. That's a luxury for them. Unfortunately, we didn't have that luxury in the early days. For us, doing this meant solving a customer pain point, and then later a category gets built around it. We didn't want to set the category name or definition at the time. And even to this day, some people say, hey, you're a meeting management solution. Some people say you're an AI assistant. Some people say you're conversation intelligence. We do all of it.
Right.
But I think it's hard to say, I'm going to go create a category. I'm going to go educate a bunch of people. And then I'm going to go roll out a product. You can lean into what people are talking about, what people are saying. But to say I am the category, or I'm going to create a new category, it's difficult. I think it's easy for companies that are going into where already a defined category, sales enablement or CRM or application tracking system. So we were working in a place where there was no category. And then when companies are looking at, wait, which budget or line item do we put this into? There is no answer. That's a double-edged sword. But again, that gives you a lot more open space, blue ocean to grow. But I think category creation comes much more later on, after you see how customers are using. Even the UiPath CEO said, we didn't ever use the word RPA in the early days. And then a whole category got created around robotic process automation. And so I believe category comes later. And I'm still curious if conversation intelligence is the best name or something else is going to be the best name. But yeah, we didn't have an explicit strategy. We said, let's go solve customer pain points. Let's write content and guides and case studies for the pain that we're trying to solve for them. And from there, we'll extrapolate afterwards.
With such a loyal audience, I think they're going to tell you what the category is, if it even is needed, downstream. At the end of the day, it goes into our IT line item. So software expense. Staying relevant and staying innovative is not easy. And it takes, we have innovation sessions every single month at Avocet where we take a problem or a situation, we define some criteria around it and solve, what could be sort of questioning around that. What do you deploy internally to make sure that you're constantly building that DNA of innovation and forward thinking, and let's never look back, let's always look forward, what could be next, what is possible sort of mindset?
I think a lot of the time, the market pulls these things out of you, but there are also times when you have to take a stand, pick a decision, and then go with it. So back last year, we noticed that there was this huge demand for ChatGPT and generative AI. And before that, it was on the periphery for us in terms of technology we would try out and use. We actually had early access to all of those generative AI and LLMs much earlier. almost a year in advance so we could start working on it. But the impetus didn't really come until we saw everyone talking about it, everyone wanting it. And so what we did was we made a conscious decision that we're going to spin up teams that are going to go do these innovative things on their own. They're not going to be bothered. And it is really like creating a little AI lab inside Fireflies to go run a bunch of different experiments. And we have those folks go in and they're undisturbed and they come out with some really exciting features and capabilities and products. So I think that if we needed to just listen to our customers, we probably have the next 3 years of roadmap already built.
I agree.
In terms of what we need to do and what we need to execute on. But it's really a matter of prioritization. But to stay innovative, to stay lean as a startup, I actually really think it starts with headcount. We try to keep the teams small and then the sub teams even smaller. And then we try to allow people that have a great vision, great ability to execute, give them a direction and let them run. I think that's the best thing. Usually you have to micromanage when you don't fully trust their ability to execute, but giving people a big problem, defining some guardrails around it, and then letting them run, that's how you stay innovative. That's how many amazing products were built. By the way, like Gmail was built by one person over like 2 days.
Wow.
Chrome was built by a very small team that was competing against other browsers at that time. The new Facebook Threads that was released was built, I think, with a team of just 10 people.
Wow.
So I do believe small teams can make a great impact. And that's how you can stay innovative. And then how you bring that all in together is another story, another challenge, change management, the things that come with as you grow larger and become a multi-product sort of company. But as a result of this thinking, we released our AI product called Ask Fred, where you can just ask Fred questions about your meetings and it'll generate those things for you. We released this thing that said, hey, everyone likes to have their notes slightly different or wants something different. So let's build an AI app platform so you can go in and customize the way you want Fireflies to take notes for you. So all of these things are a byproduct of tying customer demand to a small innovative team, and then the market timing and the customer pull lets you go forward and stay.
Well, and you've just defined something that's incredibly important for any brand out there right now, which is personalization. And what can you be doing to personalize the experience or allow the customer to have a personalized outcome? And that's exactly what you've defined there.
It's funny because that doesn't just apply to product, that applies to marketing, that applies to sales.
It does.
Maybe you don't want like 10,000 leads, but you want 100 right leads that are like well suited for you. And so in the last 2 years, the whole industry, especially with VC money flowing through, everyone wanted more at the expense of quality. And what we've realized from a product and marketing and go-to-market perspective is the more personalized we can be, the more we can directly answer a person's questions. If possible, giving them a more white glove experience or the resources they need to have a white glove experience is going to eventually win in the longer term. It's going to get you better conversions. Like the rest of your marketing, sales, product funnels are going to be a lot better. And personalization starts with the content you write. It starts with the way your sales team interacts with them.
Everything. Yeah.
Everything. And even from a product point of view, that's how we said we're going to like, look, no one's going to be happy with just the general thing that we provide to them. Let's give them the tools to change it to their needs. And we're just on the works. We're just about to roll that out. But we're seeing some nice, strong adoption as a result.
You know, it's such a wise insight because so many people think personalization, it can only be with marketing, and they don't take it to the next step of sales, of product development, which is the precursor to all of that. So I appreciate that insight. I think it's really something very, very important for our audience to be hearing today. What is next? So you've got all this opportunity. We know that you're scaling. What is the next thing you're going to do to create some of that exponential growth?
One of the biggest areas for me at Fireflies that I'm very excited about is expanding our product offering from English to dozens of other foreign languages, other multilingual products. So Spanish, French, German. There's just been this massive need and desire from people outside of the English speaking market. And I think that is something I'm really excited towards working on. We have something out in beta today, and we're continuing to work on it and improve it. That'll be very exciting. We're going to continue building the AI features and tools as well. And yeah, we have some really exciting things in store for our customers that not just want to use it in their video conferencing calls, but also want to have Fireflies in in-person meetings. So there's some really cool things that we're working on. So that also means mobile app is coming out very soon for us. So that'll open up a lot of opportunities for people to use Fireflies everywhere and not just in their video calls. So yeah, like there's just so many exciting things. I mentioned like the AI app store that we're building. And what that does is changes Fireflies into an overall platform. And the note taker is just one piece of the platform. It's one app on top of the platform. If you wanted to, say you are a product manager and you can have Fireflies go in and pull all the feature requests from your last 30 days of customer calls. And that's an app you can build called Feature Requests. So we're going to have many apps. You can have one for feature requests. You can have one for recruiting, where you are trying to have the app score all of your candidates and get you like quick scores on like who you should hire or what experiences certain people have. So there's going to be like an app store, just like the Apple App Store or the Slack and Salesforce app stores, an app store where you get to decide what data you want, what insights you want to pull, and you can build an app for that.
I love it.
Yeah, whether you're recruiting, sales, marketing, internal ops, legal, you're going to have an app, a Fireflies app that you'll be able to use.
How did you come up with the name Fireflies? I love it because it's so unique and different, but what's the meaning behind it? And take us back to that decision point with everyone at the table saying, okay, this is it.
Funny thing is, the reason we use the name Fireflies versus the reason people like the name is two different things. So when we had started, me and my co-founder actually worked on dozens of different projects, and we just used the code name Fireflies for all of our hackathons and projects back in the day.
Love it.
And so one of the projects we did was like drones that fly around and do drone delivery, completely unrelated to AI. My co-founder and CTO, Sam, is an aeronautical engineer, really smart guy. I had to kind of convince him to come to the SaaS, like the dark side.
Aren't you glad you did?
Yeah, we're very happy, and he loves AI and everything we do here. But yeah, it was something that was really cool because at night, Fireflies, the drones look like fireflies when they light up. So that was the name. But
I love it.
The customers bring it up as, oh, there's an idiomatic phrase. I'll be a fly on the wall, and I'm just going to listen.
That's great.
And that's what Fireflies is. So it's like an AI note taker. It's the fly on the wall that listens. I didn't come up with that. A customer came up with it, or someone that wrote an article about us came up with it. And another one that I really liked was, well, Fireflies light up the night. And in the same way, you're lighting up all the most critical conversations and knowledge that people didn't have access to in the past. So I like those two narratives behind it, and I say, okay, that's going to be our origin story, even though it didn't come from us.
Well, and what's beautiful is, perception is reality, right? And that people want to develop those origin stories for you. Your customer, your very loyal customer base, I think is something very special. Okay, we're 10 years downstream. What is your future self telling Krish today?
Future Krish telling me today. Oh, wow. I'm always forward looking, but I would say that in the future, I would probably be telling myself less is more. Quality time is really important, whether it's with your team, whether it's with your with your product, your customers. So really being more accessible to those that need you, your family, your team, and try to cancel out a lot of the noise, the white noise that comes in, and a lot of the distractions. So stay focused on what you believe. So I feel like that's advice I would tell myself 10 years ago, and I would probably tell myself that again and reemphasize that 10 years into the future, looking back, because there are many times in my life where you almost want to give up because of some of the feedback that people have given you, or when you're looking for external validation for every little thing, it's very difficult to want to continue, especially for entrepreneurs. There's a time to quit. There is a time to say, maybe that is true. But then there's also a time where you know deep down inside your gut that you need to bring this to a certain level before you make a call. Yeah. And I think that applies to us in every aspect of our lives.
Well, I tell you, you've been very, very inspiring today, Krish. We appreciate your appearance on the Integrate and Ignite podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Lori. Had a great time.
This episode is complete. Head over to avocetcommunications.com for more ways to scale and grow your business. And be sure to tune in regularly for insights and motivation with host Lori Jones and her guests on the Integrate and Ignite Marketing Podcast.